Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you to day three of what we call Overcoming Stigma, Finding Hope. But there's also the story element. And we're so pleased on the shared traditional territories of the Katzie, Kwanlin, Coast Salish, and Semiahmoo nations, the unceded territories, to have this partnership with the Stigma-Free Mental Health Society. And Andrea Paquette, I'm pronouncing your name correctly today. Fantastic. To do these, to have these stories with us. And today is our last day. Of course, if you as schools want to book the Stigma Free Mental Health Society to do stuff in your school, feel free to reach out to Andrea. I'm sure she'll have her information somewhere, and I'll also post it in the YouTube after. But we're so glad that you're here, whether you're watching now or looking at the YouTube and watching later. We really hope that you gain a lot, you and your students gain a lot from watching the stories of these wonderful people who are sharing with us. We have Sarah and Sunny today. But without any further ado, because I want to leave time for their stories and time for that learning for you, I will turn the time over to Andrea to introduce our guest for today. But also on this last day, I really want to, Andrea, thank you for just this great. The last 2 days has been awesome. The YouTube, a lot of people have watched it, and more will watch it still. And just the partnership we have with the Stigma Free Mental Health Society is so meaningful to us as a district. I know that all the schools, that when you used to come into the schools and give away stickers and things like that, people love that. And as you've pivoted to doing online, and I know it came from the pandemic shutdown and leading to that, I think you've actually been able to positively affect even more people by doing this. Like we found out that the stories that you're telling and the stamping out of stigma and the support of mental health, because you've decided to go solely online, has actually been able to affect so many more people just because of the way that you guys are doing that through story and doing that through relationship. So thank you so much for our partnership. I truly appreciate it, and the district does, and we're so proud to have Stigma Free Mental Health Society as one of our partners. So Andrea, with that, I'll turn it over to you. But thank you.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Hello, my name is Andrea Paquette, and I'm president and co-founder of the Stigma-Free Mental Health Society. We just changed our name about 2 weeks ago, so if you hear me referring to the society as Stigma-Free Society, please do forgive me. We're still in that transition phase, but we changed our name to bring more of a focus to the work that we do. We do still focus on other stigmas, but more how they affect people's mental health. And so today we have two wonderful presenters, and I'm very excited in a moment to share a little bit about them and have them introduce themselves. But first, a little bit about Stigma Free. So we have been in existence since 2010, first incorporated as the Bipolar Disorder Society of British Columbia, and then after some time, after 6 years, we became the Stigma Free Society, and that stuck for about 8 years. And so, with the evolution of the charity, we are now Stigma Free Mental Health, and very proud to do so. We are a charity that focuses on the awareness of mental health and the issues that people face, and also creating understanding in the world and how we can all do that with strategies and tips. And lastly, acceptance. Acceptance is very important, not only the acceptance of ourselves, but the acceptance of other people as well. So, since I have two presenters with me today, I'm as well going to share at the after they do share their personal stories. I'm going to give a little bit of a tour of the Student Mental Health Toolkit, share our stigma-free society. No, Andrea, Stigma-Free Mental Health main website. And I just want to share more about our charity and what we can offer schools. We've been partnered now, I believe it's been almost 8 years with the Surrey School District with Daniel Toe. And we're just so thrilled to be presenting today to the largest school district in all of British Columbia. We feel very, very honored, and let's have a great event today. So first and foremost, I'm going to introduce Sunny, and I will share your bio, Sunny, and then you can share your personal story, okay? And you can come off mute. So Sunny is a life coach, motivational speaker, and human resources professional. Growing up in a single parent household, enduring bullying, and being told he would not amount to much in his early years, it was very tough for him. It wasn't until he went to university that he finally started to do well in life and develop some confidence. Once he graduated university, he wanted to continue to learn and to grow. He started to read books and has read over 150. Wow, that is absolutely astounding, Sunny. Amazing. Through reading, he began to reflect on his life and realized he truly overcame the odds and achieved success. From there, he decided to become a speaker and a coach to help people do the same thing. Sunny now helps individuals develop confidence to live an authentic life on their own terms and be more emotionally aware. In his speaking, Sunny raises awareness around expressing your emotions, being confident to live an authentic life, and having more fulfilling relationships that involve enforcing boundaries and having tough conversations. All right. So, Sunny, I'm going to let you take it away. And thank you so much for being here and sharing your personal story. It takes a lot of courage. Today, our focus is strength and stories, and I know you have a lot to share. So thank you, and I'll give it to you.
Wow, Andrea, thank you. Yeah, it's awesome. I just hearing that again, sometimes you kind of forget little parts of your journey. So thank you for sharing that. So yeah, I'll get into my journey. As Andrea mentioned, my name is Sunny Chopra. I'm a public speaker and a life coach that helps people become more confident and be who they want to be. I also work as a human resources professional where I'm in charge of hiring and training employees. I'll go in a little bit deeper on why I became a coach, why I'm in human resources, and just a little more than what Andrea mentioned. And it really relates to what I went through in elementary and high school and in my early years. So in my early years, I got bullied a lot. I got picked on for the way I looked, the way I spoke, and for being skinny. Sometimes it was verbal bullying, and sometimes it was physical. I was teased for being bad at sports, so I never really gave any kind of sports a try. I also struggled because of a learning disability, and I was told I would not amount to much. I also witnessed my parents divorce at the age of 5, and I ended up living with my mom and siblings. When I was young, all I wanted was for my dad to love and accept me, but I did not get that. Everything that was happening at school and my parents' divorce ruined my confidence, my self-esteem, and my self-worth. I would just not even try in anything in life. It was like the story was written for me, and I was going to make no edits to it whatsoever and just go through life. I thought I would never be good enough to do anything. So anytime someone asked me, a family member or my mom, do I want to try in sports? Do I want to play basketball, hockey, whatever it may be, I would say no. But at that time, I didn't go into detail why I said no. It was just a simple no, and they didn't really know what I was experiencing because I would always hide it. I also did not have many friends, so I did everything I could to get people's approval, even if it was to act like and be like someone who I was not. Also, all these so-called relationships that I had was one-sided. For example, if someone disrespected me, I would act like nothing happened because even if I approached them or confronted them and say, why did you do that to me? I had fear that I would lose that relationship. So at that point, having someone to talk with, even if they were disrespecting me, was better than having no one at all. But I certainly knew that they didn't like me, but I just wanted to be accepted. And it really didn't help that I went to 3 different elementary schools and 5 different high schools. But in the beginning, when I did start these new schools, I had a little bit of hope. I thought, okay, this is a fresh start. No one really knows who I am. Maybe I can really build true friendships here. But it was only a matter of time before I started to get bullied again. And I started to think, is something wrong with me? How come no one likes me? Am I not good enough? In my early years, I faced a lot of stigma around having a learning disability. I would hide it from my other classmates. I remember any time I went to my learning disability class, I made sure no one saw me. When I was in my classes, I even acted like I didn't have a learning disability, even though I was struggling with reading and comprehending and and summarizing certain things, assignments, I didn't act like I needed that help when I really did need it. And acting this way and ignoring this actually made things more difficult for me, and it made my grades even worse. The impact that the learning disability stigma had on me was it caused me to feel helpless and useless. Always trying to hide it caused me anxiety. And looking back on it now, I don't think I told a single person in elementary or high school that I had a learning disability or I was in those classes. I was already struggling to make friends, as I mentioned, so there was no way I was going to share this because I didn't want people to think that something was wrong with me, and that honestly, I felt like they would think I'm a weird kid. In my later years, I faced a lot of stigma around opening up and getting help. This included talking about my emotions, my home situation, and bullying. Anytime I even tried to cry at home, my mom would grab me right away and say, don't cry, don't cry. Everything's going to be okay. And I know she was caring for me, but what that did was it didn't allow me to feel my emotions. And it taught me that crying is not something I should do. Crying is not something boys do. And I felt like I needed to tough it up and be strong. But I was so wrong about this. And this mindset of hiding how I felt and avoiding crying made things even harder for me. Looking back now, these stigmas caused me other difficulties as well. For example, feeling sad, unmotivated, tired, and feeling sick. I always felt like I could never be a proper kid who could make their family proud. In terms of talking about what I was going through, it's not that I didn't have good family members around me, but I just felt alone. I felt alone not only because I thought something was wrong with me, but the pain I was feeling inside was not something that should ever be talked about. And I felt that if I brought this up to my mom, it would stress her out even more because I knew at this time she was struggling with finances and she was still struggling with the divorce. Looking back at my childhood, there was only a handful of times where I cried, and it came in the form of random uncontrollable cries. Remember, there was one time where one of the kids on the playground stole my toy, and I started crying. I cried so much, and it had nothing to do with the toy. It was just because I had, for so long, held all this pain inside that one little thing set me off. And I was confused too, looking back, thinking, Sonny, what's wrong with you? Why are you crying over a little toy? It's not a big deal. At that time, I didn't quite understand why I was doing this. So I was just hard on myself and thinking like, oh, Sonny, you need to be stronger. You need to stop being a baby. So a lot of negative self-talk. Shifting to grade 12, I still created that same mindset of not being good enough. And when it came to graduation, I barely got through. While my other classmates were off to university and do their other post-secondary journeys, I had no plan and I had no journey. I just made the assumption that I was not good enough to go to university or do anything to further my life, so I'm not going to even try. Since grade 11, I had been working at Best Buy as a part-time employee. They offered me a full-time role, so I said, okay, I'll just take this. This is great. I can make some money. I worked there for 2 years, and in those 2 years, I saw a lot of my classmates enjoying their post-secondary lives. It was a very confusing time because inside, I felt so lost, sad, hopeless, and unworthy. But at the same time, I wanted to do something with my life, but I did not have that confidence. And I just thought, if I do this, people are going to make fun of me. I'm going to fail. I'm going to be like a laughing stock in my family. It's just not worth it. Having this confusion really impacted my work performance, and I ended up getting fired from my job. At the time when I got fired, I thought it was the worst thing in the world that happened to me. But it actually is and was the best thing ever. And I'll get to that later. I began to look for another job, but found nothing for a year. And I didn't have much going on in my life. And the only thing I really had going on, because I had so much extra time, was I joined the gym and I started to lift weights. I was being labeled a skinny kid. I wanted to gain weight and become more confident. And as the months went on, I went to the gym consistently because, again, I really had nothing else to do. So I had all the time in the world. I started to gain muscle mass. I started to gain weight. I started to feel healthier and more active and fit. And I realized for the first time in my life that I had actually achieved a goal that I put consistent effort into. And I realized if I put my mind to anything, and maybe if I apply the same mindset of working hard and being consistent, maybe I can really achieve anything in my life. And that's when I started to look at the possibility of going to university. It still took me a few months to take action, but with the help from a counselor, I decided on human resources. And I chose this field because it involved having an outgoing personality and working with people and honestly doing speeches like this. This is something I always wanted to be like, but I never got to, or I never was confident enough to show the real me in elementary and high school. It was almost a year and a half after I got fired, I started university. And this was also 3 years after I graduated high school. Now, although I had registered and, I was set to start university, I still did not have confidence that I would succeed. And the other thing that was kind of weighing me down was like, damn, I'm almost 22 years old. Everyone that I'm taking classes with is most likely going to be 18 or 19. I'm behind. So that was kind of in my mind as well. But honestly, I had nothing going on. And I said, how much worse can it get? I have no job. I have really nothing. So if I fail at this, what's the big deal? And I just told myself, I'm just going to try. I'm not going to really tell anyone I'm going to university because at that time, I still wasn't confident enough to share with others because I thought they would make fun of me. But I said, all I'm going to do is focus on this and give it my best shot. And that's exactly what I did. I worked so hard, attended every class, made extra notes, did extra work, and I started to do well. And I was so motivated. Another reason I was so motivated was because I needed to prove to myself that I was capable of this and I needed to try it. Soon after this, I realized, wow, I'm actually a very intelligent person. I have a good work ethic and I'm a good student. And I actually started to like school for the first time ever. All this increased my self-confidence, and 6 years later, I would walk away with a university degree and a diploma. In those last 2 years, I also had a full-time job. This whole experience built my work ethic, my determination, my hunger for success and growth. If you had told me when I was a little kid that one day I would be in university and get a degree, there was no way I would have believed you. And I don't think anyone else would have either. But a lot of people didn't believe in me. Were happy they were wrong about me because when I ended up achieving these goals, they were very proud of me, and my dad was as well. After I graduated university, I wanted to continue to learn and grow. So I started reading books, as Andrea mentioned. I started with one, and since then I have read over 150. Through reading, I increased my self-awareness, and it allowed me to be reflective on my life. As I look back, I realized I was not supposed to achieve all this. I felt I was given a story that involved difficulty, hopelessness, sadness, and defeat. But I changed that story and made it a story of overcoming the odds, achieving success by working hard, and in the process, discovering the real version of myself. I was proud of myself when I graduated university, but it was when I truly reflected on my whole life, I truly gained an appreciation and pride for what I had accomplished. From there, I realized if someone like me, who had everyone telling him that he's not going to do well in life, but I was able to come through that, I know others can do it too. And that's when I decided to become a motivational speaker and a coach. For the stigma around opening up, it all started with seeking support from trusted family and friends, as well as talking to counselors. It included me learning from my past and moving on. One example was forgiving my dad and forming a good relationship with him. through doing all this, I started to discover who I was as a person, my interests, my beliefs, my values. And I started to do things and have people in my life that aligned with that. And I also understood that if I did not open up and get help, it would negatively impact me. All this made me proud to be vulnerable, emotional, and seek help when needed. I realized that opening up is not weak. Opening up actually takes true strength and courage. And I also realized we are never alone. There are always people out there willing to help out. What do I currently do to maintain my mental health? I do things that just involve me. For example, I work out 4 times a week. I go for walks, I meditate, and I say no to things that drain my energy. I also do fun things such as play basketball, play video games, watch TV. For my support system, I hang out with friends and family. I regularly talk to a counselor, and I express my feelings and concerns with those close to me, so I'm not resentful. I also ensure that I'm around positive people, people who want to see the best for me, people who will give me good feedback, and people who want to see me grow. Now, don't get me wrong, I still have good days and bad days. I still sometimes feel unconfident like I did when I was younger. But now I have that awareness that I have been great and I can be great again. And I know I have a track record. If I achieve something once, I can achieve it again. I also know that I'm capable of overcoming the odds. There's been so many examples in my life, and I've been able to overcome it. And I also know I have people around me who will support me and guide me through difficult times. Someone like me who grew up in a single parent household and had a learning disability was not supposed to be in this position, let alone talk to all of you. I was not supposed to get a degree, become a coach, and have a successful human resources career. I was not supposed to be a confident, intelligent, hardworking individual. I was not supposed to be someone who stood up for themselves and took pride in opening up. But I was able to change my story. I used my challenges to motivate me to work even harder. And like I mentioned, if I had not lost that job, I don't know where I would be, because losing that job, in a way, it backed me in a corner. It backed me in a corner where I had no choice but to do something. Whereas before, where I had that job was almost like a comfortability. It was almost like a safety net that if I have this job, it's okay. I don't really have to challenge myself. I don't really need to grow and do something great. But the fact that I lost my job and I had nothing to do, the only way to go and look was up. And I do think I would never be able to do that had I not gone through that experience. And a little bit of a funny story too. I ended up seeing that manager that let me go or fired me several years later. And, looking back on it, I had no issues. It was all business and it made sense. I was not a good employee. So it made all the sense in the world. But most importantly, what that manager did for me was give me this opportunity to discover the real Sonny. So when I saw him, I shook his hand and I said, thank you. Actually, I started with thank you for firing me. And he was a little confused, like, okay, Sonny, are you okay? And, I explained the story to him and he was very happy. And, it was awesome. It was a great experience to be able to do that and go through that and see him, because I didn't think I'd ever see him again. And even when he did let me go, he said to me, Sonny, there's a lot of paths you can go, but I hope that, you stay positive, you do good things in your life. You're still young. And that meant a lot to me. And other things that really did that experience was it helped me understand what I want to do in this life and really be who I am and be authentic and not be shy or embarrassed to be the real me. And, we all don't start the same. We all have different learning styles, but just because we have different learning styles, it does not make them wrong. We need to find what best works for us and take advantage of that. We're all different, and that is not weird. It is okay. It's what makes us unique, and we should be proud of that. Do not ever give up without trying. Always give it your best shot. You'll be surprised at how much you can accomplish. And don't let anyone tell you you are not worthy, you are not good enough, or smart. Because I'm here to tell you that you are smart, you are worthy, you are an excellent human being. Love yourself, stand up for yourself, because you are worthy of respect. If there are issues in your life, don't ignore them. Get help, not because you are weak, but because you want to remain strong. If you don't, then things will get worse, and it will cause you more stress. And once you do this, you can better control the situation instead of it controlling you. And most importantly, you get to discover the real version of you. Another thing I want to mention as I finish up here is, as I got older, I realized it's not about having a lot of friends, but it's about having quality friends that are there for you during the good and especially the bad times. And the awesome thing is, when you actually become the real version of you, you're going to attract friends that like you for you. This is my story, and it's unique to me. People who have faced similar challenges may have different experiences. But if my story is to tell you anything, is that a story may be written for you, but you can make edits to it at any time. Thank you.
I really love that. I really love the edits. That's really great. Thank you so much, Sunny. I always really appreciate hearing your story. We've presented a couple times now together. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I just want to ask you a few questions.
Sure.
You know how you were talking about self-confidence, right? And I know you discussed that a bit for yourself. Do you have any tips for young people who just feel like they don't have confidence and that they want to gain some? Is there anything they can do?
Yeah, I would say there's a number of things. If you're trying, if there's a certain situation or a new experience that you want, talk to someone that has done that. Get their perspective on that. And I think the other thing to know is, you can't just, be an expert at something, or you can't be confident at something in one day. It takes small steps, and it's okay if you're going to be a little uncomfortable. It takes time. Like, I'll give you an example. For me, I just started doing swimming, and I'm, I think equivalent of like level 2 or 3. Like, I want to be a good swimmer, but I know it's going to take me time. I'm not a confident swimmer yet, but I occasionally go swimming. I take lessons, and I know I'm eventually going to get there. So sometimes it's just about taking action will build our confidence, right? That's one of the most important things, is just getting in there, building that confidence, and then also being around people who support you and want to see you succeed, right? Because sometimes we might have people who say, oh, you can't do that. That's not a good idea. And that might be their view of things, but it doesn't mean it's the right view.
Yeah, exactly. And I think mentorship at any age, meaning someone to look up to, somebody who can help guide you in your life, provide advice, be that positive role model, right? Like, I think that's important too. And you really touched on that. And another thing, this whole idea in society that boys don't cry. And I feel like that can be very harmful. We know that men, young boys, you have feelings, and it's really healthy to express what you are feeling. So I was wondering if you had a message out there for any young boys who may be suffering with not being able to express their emotions because of stigma, because of judgment, or just that regular attitude that is still out there today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even for me, I still find it a little uncomfortable to do, but I know I've done it enough now where I know I'm going to feel better. So that's one of the things. You will feel so much better doing it. And, a lot of these things, talking about your mental health and talking, getting help, it doesn't have to be done in front of everyone. That's the other important thing I want to highlight here. When I do cry in certain situations, I'm around trusted people. I don't just do it in front of everyone, because that's very uncomfortable, right? So if you are feeling there's, you're holding back, and you feel like you want to let those tears out, because I've done it certainly, where I feel it in my neck, as I'm in my throat, and I'm going like this because I don't want to cry. And then it's very important to do it in an environment, in a situation where you feel safe and comfortable, and just know that there's nothing wrong with it. It's a human emotion. It's normal. And be around people who I always say, like, if you want to go to someone, maybe in your, if you feel there's someone in your family or friend circle, and again, maybe like an older person who has talked about their mental health in the past, they're more likely to be accepting of that. And that's what I did in the beginning too, was I went to an older cousin who had talked about his mental health, and I told him about my struggles, and he was very accepting and willing. But I think it's just be around people that you're comfortable with and realize that it's a normal human emotion.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so very much. All
Thank you.
right. Yes, thank you, Sunny. All right, so now I'm going to introduce Sarah. And Sarah has been with Stigma-Free Society for quite some time, I think almost 2 years, one of our longest standing presenters. And we're very, very, very happy to have you here today, Sarah. How are you doing today? Okay, I think Sarah has a leg. It's okay. All right, so I'm going to start by
Can you
reading
hear me?
Sarah's.
Sorry.
Yeah, we can now.
I
Yeah,
was
for sure.
muted.
All right, I'll just introduce you with your bio. So, Sarah aims to help break down the stigma that surrounds mental health. As someone who experienced the stigma around talking about her own experience with anxiety and depression, she is passionate about sharing her story so that others know that they are not alone. Sarah is a librarian and holds a master's degree in library and information science with a focus on youth services. She is a journalist, actress, curve model, lifestyle, and book blogger. Sarah likes to spread positivity and hopes that her story will encourage others to focus on their mental wellness and practice self-care. So, Sarah, let's give this a try, and handing it over to you. And Sarah, can you hear us?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Andrea. Yes, can everybody hear me and see me okay? I
Yes.
can. There's just a bit of a lag. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you all so much for having me. I'm going to share my personal story. So again, thanks so much for the bio, Andrea. But yeah, so my name is Sarah Khan, and I am a librarian, a journalist, model, actress. What I'm trying to say is I like to be involved with a lot of things, and I feel the best when I'm out in the community and meeting others. I'm very extroverted. I think my Myers-Briggs is like ENFP, so I'm like a real extrovert. But today I'm going to share a story about my journey with mental health and with stigma. And so when I was around 19, 20, so when I was in university, I started to feel a lot of overwhelm and anxiety. But at the time, I didn't really understand what any of that meant. And overwhelm might be, you don't think of it that much. And even at the time, I didn't think of it that much. And sometimes I think about overwhelm, it's kind of like if you pick up something heavy, and at the time, you're like, oh, it's not that heavy. But then the longer you hold it, you're like, oh no, this is getting heavier and heavier. And it was that for me, but in a lot of ways where I was like, okay, I can work and go to school. I can have 4 classes, maybe 5. I can maintain a social life. Initially, it's easy. But if you layer it all on top of each other, it starts becoming quite overwhelming. You start feeling the weight of all of that. And I started to have a lot of feelings like this when I started university. And it started slowly. There were some days where I just felt like I had too many things to do. I had work, I had school, I had a social life, I had family. But that stressful feeling started to become how I always felt. And I always just felt like I didn't have enough time, and I would worry about how fast I had to get something done or how long it would take me to get somewhere. And I was always thinking about what was going to happen, what could happen. And at that time, I didn't think anything of it. I just thought that's how people feel. But little did I know I was developing anxiety. And so anxiety is kind of an emotion that includes feelings of tension, worried thoughts, physical changes like increased blood pressure. So I started to have a lot of these feelings But again, I just didn't know I didn't even know what to call it at the time because there wasn't a ton of mental health awareness when I was experiencing this. So my anxiety slowly started to take over my life. I was constantly worrying about being late or not handing in my homework. And at the time, I actually thought everyone felt like this. I thought it was normal to always be stressed. I thought it was normal to always be worried about what might happen. And because of this, I didn't realize I had anxiety for a long time. And in the toolkit, there is a thing that mentions that if you feel a certain way for more than 2 weeks, you may want to reach out to someone. And so for me, knowing that now, I would have known what to look for. I would have known if I'm waking up feeling really anxious or nervous and going to bed feeling anxious and nervous day in and day out for more than 2 weeks, I maybe should have spoken to someone. But I had no idea, I had no understanding of it. And because of that, I felt like that for more than a year. So during this time, my anxiety just got worse because I didn't know how to manage it. I didn't even know I had it. I started to doubt myself. My undergrad was in journalism and communications. I love writing, and I was afraid to write. I would write a sentence for an assignment and I would think about it over and over and over again. And it got to the point where I would sit there trying to write, but be so afraid of writing something. And then I would run out of time and everything would be down to the wire. And I was just racked with so much nervousness and worry and second guessing myself. And then in the end, I would just quickly finish what I had to do and be so stressed. And I'd be so upset I didn't work on it longer or that it wasn't better. And I struggle a lot with perfectionism. So I just always felt like anything I wrote, anything I did had to be perfect. But feeling that way also made me feel like I could never do it. So I was really harsh on myself. I was really hard on myself. And I had really negative self-talk with myself during this time because I would think anything I did was not good, worthless. I shouldn't even try, but I still wanted to keep up. Like it was this really bad cycle that I was starting for myself. And I just didn't know how to cope. I didn't really know what was wrong with me. I started to cry a lot. I started to become really scared of doing anything. It wasn't just school, it was work, it was hanging out with my friends, being around my family. And so I started getting nervous when I was doing things socially. I would get stressed about talking to people. I would think I would say the wrong thing. I would hate driving places. And I worked at a bookstore at that time and while I was in university, and I really loved working there. I enjoyed being there. But even then, when I would go to work, I felt very on edge and I felt like I wasn't good at my job. And oftentimes when you don't believe in yourself or you feel like you're going to mess up, I felt like then I was messing up more, or I was just more in tune with myself if I made a mistake. And I was so hard on myself. But I never let it show. I would pretend that everything was great. I would put on a nice big smile and laugh at jokes. And even though I was stressed out the entire time, if I was with my friends or with my family, I would still pretend that everything was fine because I wanted to be perfect. I wanted to be the person people wanted me to be, right? So I had that perfectionism and I never wanted to let people know that something was slipping from me. But the minute I would get home or get in my car, I would just feel awful because here I was pretending and pretending and pretending. And so I was just constantly anxious and stressed. And I think a lot of this was I had developed a really unhealthy relationship with social media as well. I was already really hard on myself. I was already thinking anything I did wasn't good enough. And then I would go on social media and then I would see other people doing well. So they got into a master's program or they were traveling or they were doing something. And the thing with social media is it's a highlight reel. no one ever shares when they're not feeling good, well, especially not then. And I just kept feeling like I was falling behind. That why wasn't I traveling? Why wasn't I getting into a master's program? So I just was constantly being harder and harder and harder on myself. And I was also then comparing myself to people maybe I went to school with, or people I knew, or people who were on social media who I didn't know, and their lives are so different than mine. But I still just, that's the one thing with social media. You can be following people who have completely different lives and compare yourself. And that's really negative if you don't understand that that's just a highlight reel. Everybody's life is different. Everybody has a different journey. So during this time in my life, from the anxiety, it was getting more and more severe. So this is probably 6 or 7 months of anxiety where I wasn't feeling right, but just didn't know what was happening. And then I developed depression. So depression is a type of mood disorder characterized by low or irritable mood or loss of interest or pleasure in almost all activities over a period of time. It can drain your energy, your motivation, your connection, and your meaning. And I had a lot of that, and I didn't really understand. Like, I loved reading books. I'm a librarian now. I worked at a bookstore. I was a journalist. Like, words and books and things like that were so important to me. And I didn't like reading books anymore. I didn't like hanging out with my friends anymore. I was losing so much of my joy in life. The things that once brought me joy, I felt like they just did nothing for me. And again, I didn't really understand it. I thought, okay, well, maybe I'm just nervous, or I don't have the time, or I really shouldn't be reading. I should be doing something more productive or something. I was just really hard on myself. And so my family did start noticing changes in me, but there were so many things going on at that time. I really don't think anyone knew how much I was suffering. And if I'm being honest, I don't think I knew how much I was suffering. And the thing I didn't know then that I know now is that we can lie to ourselves. And I was lying to myself for a very long time. So I actually ended up having my first panic attack a week or so before Christmas. So now keep in mind, this has been going on for probably a year, maybe longer. I just worked a long holiday retail shift at the bookstore. And I was pretending, of course. I was smiling. I said, "Happy holidays. I hope you enjoy your gifts." You know, just trying to be perfect, right? And I came home and I was so tired and I was so sad. And honestly, I was falling apart. I had barely made it through what's fall winter semester. I worked very hard to get through it. So I was, I made it through that semester. I was making it through working, but I was falling apart. It was too much on me. And my dad asked me to help open up a package. I think it was like like jelly beans or like gumballs, something like that, just like a hard candy. And sometimes if you open up a package, it opens the wrong way and stuff falls out. That's all that happened. I opened it up and it opened up wrong and the candy fell out. And I think I was just, my body, physically and mentally, I couldn't handle anything anymore. And I just started crying because I was like, I can't even open up a package properly. And I started crying and I couldn't stop crying. And I was overwhelmed with hopelessness and helplessness. And that was very scary for me. And my face started tingling. And again, people experience panic attacks differently. This is just my own personal experience. And I didn't even know what was happening to me. So my family tried to calm me down, but they actually couldn't get me to calm down. I also tried to get myself to calm down, but I had no idea what was going on. So I ended up going to the emergency that night. And the doctor told me that I had experienced a full-blown panic attack, and they gave me, I had never heard of the term panic attack as well. Like, I had no idea what had happened. And when they said panic attack, I was like, what do you mean panic attack? I didn't understand. The doctor gave me something to help me go to sleep that night, and that was it. And I actually had work the next day. And one thing about stigma that I think I didn't even know consciously that I was affected by stigma at that time, but subconsciously, I felt like I couldn't call into work. I felt like physically I was fine. I didn't have the flu. I hadn't sprained my ankle or broken anything. I was like, I should go to work. And I really thought that my work would know that I had some sort of mental like break or something like that. Like, it didn't make sense to me. Like, I was not thinking properly at this time. And so I actually ended up going to work that day, even though I had just experienced a really bad panic attack and I had no idea what was happening. And so I just felt like I had this horrible secret. And so this was around 2014, I would say, where there was still a lot of stigma around mental health. And, you know, we're from the Stigma-Free Mental Health Society, and stigma is when someone sees you in a negative way because of your mental illness, and there's social stigma and discrimination that can make mental health problems worse and stop a person from getting the help they need. And that was me. Because of that, I was so afraid if anyone found out that they would think I was weak. And I didn't want to be weak. I wanted to be perfect, right? And again, perfect is not attainable. I had to learn a lot of these things. I had to unlearn and learn a lot to get to the point where I am now. And because of the stigma around mental health, I was just so afraid to talk to anyone. I felt like I couldn't tell my best friend. I felt like I couldn't talk to my family. I felt like no one understood what I was going through. And I continued to isolate myself for a few more months. Thankfully, though, because I Googled what a panic attack was after I had my first panic attack, I started to learn more about anxiety and depression, and I found some people on YouTube that were talking about their mental health. And these people were around my age. They were talking about living with anxiety. They were explaining how they felt living with anxiety, and these were all things I felt. I felt that way, and I saw other people talking about their experiences, and I realized, oh my God, I'm not alone. I can continue, like, I can still have a really great life. And watching those YouTubers share their stories actually gave me the strength to keep going. I was able to see that life could go on, and then I wasn't afraid of stigma as I was before. And so, you know, as I said, the effect that stigma had on my mental health is that it made me afraid. I was already so vulnerable, and the stigma around mental health and counseling scared me so much. But honestly, listening to those other YouTubers talk about their experiences, it gave me the strength. Just knowing I wasn't alone helped me so much. And that's one of the reasons I work for the Stigma-Free Mental Health Society, is because I hope that my story can help others the way those YouTubers helped me. So I finally felt like, okay, I can talk to someone. I actually ended up just going to the walk-in clinic because I wasn't able to see my family doctor. And I told the walk-in clinic doctor how I was feeling. I told her how hopeless and helpless and afraid and nervous I always felt. And she recommended I talk to a counselor. And choosing to speak to a counselor was the best thing I ever did. I was able to truly be honest with myself. And even though I did have my friends, I was really lucky. I had friends, I had family, but I always felt like they didn't understand maybe. And to be honest, I was afraid to be honest with them because I was also a bit afraid of my own thoughts. And the counselor recommended that I start journaling anytime I felt upset, or just journaling every day, just so I can get out all my feelings about the day and process the day. And that sometimes helps to get your worries and feelings out on paper instead of bottling up your emotions. And I was very good at bottling up my emotions. So I would journal pages and pages every night before bed. I would bare my soul on those pages because I wasn't going to lie to a piece of paper. Even though I felt like I was lying to myself for a really long time, I was like, I'm not going to lie to a piece of paper. And honestly, journaling can be different for everybody. If you don't want to take pen to paper, you can do a voice note. You could do, like, there are different ways to journal. It's not just pen to paper. So I do recommend to people to find their own kind of outlet for, you know, processing things that they might be going through. And yeah, so many times I did want to be normal again. You know, I wanted to be who I was before the panic attacks and the anxiety and depression. I wanted to be who I used to be. I wanted to be the girl who loved writing and loved presenting and loved being out in the community. But what I learned from counseling was that I wasn't that person anymore. And that was okay. I had grown. I will never be the person I was before my anxiety. But I had felt broken, and I found the strength and made the time to put myself together. And the person I am now is stronger than the one before. And to this day, I do daily check-ins with myself to make sure I'm okay. I have what I call my own toolkit that reminds me to stay present and live in the now, and to leave the past in the past and not worry too much about the future. Because I was struggling a lot with that. I was constantly worrying about the future, the what ifs, and that was giving me a lot of anxiety. And then I would sit there and be upset about what I could have done and think about the what ifs of, I could have done that, I could have done this, and that was giving me depression. So I like to, if I ever feel like those feelings are coming back to me, I stop and I say, well, just be present, be in the moment, look around, appreciate what's around you, be thankful, be grateful. It's kind of ways of practicing gratitude. So yeah, I try not to worry too much about the future. I do still journal when I'm feeling overwhelmed because it helps me work out the feelings that I'm feeling and process what I might be going through. And since all of that started, since I spoke to a counselor, I did end up finishing my undergrad degree. I got a master's degree. I modeled, I act, and I wouldn't have been able to do any of those things had I not taken the time to talk to someone. And I'm so thankful to the YouTubers, to my counselors who made me, understand that I wasn't alone and helped me work through my anxiety and my depression and my panic attacks. I will say, I still have days where I feel that pressure to keep up and be perfect. But now I know that perfection doesn't exist and that everyone's life goes at a different pace. No two people are the same. Instead of focusing on everyone else, I try to focus on myself and take care of myself and be kind to myself because I was so mean to myself. I like to practice self-care, like going for long walks in nature, talking to my friends. I love reading again. And self-care looks different for everybody. So don't forget to take the time to focus on yourself. One, make sure your basic needs are being met. Make sure you're drinking enough water, getting enough good nutrition. Physical exercise is really good. The physical health and mental health are really important. And then try to really hone in on things that bring you joy. It could be reading, it could be walking, it could be journaling. So take the time to focus on yourself and do what makes you happy. This is my story. It's unique to me. People who have faced similar challenges may have different experiences, and they are all valid. And I'm really so appreciative of all of you to come and listen to my story and learn a little bit more. And yeah, thank you so much.
Great, Sarah. Thank you so very much. Really appreciate you coming here today and sharing your personal story. I know sometimes a lot of young people deal with depression and anxiety, very common. And so I really hope that, and I'm sure they have gained a lot of insight from you. So thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Sunny and Sarah, thank you for coming. You are welcome to exit the stream. I'm just going to do a share of the student mental health toolkit, well, the school program actually, and just give people a little bit more information on our virtual presentations. But thank you for coming today and have a great rest of your week. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Take care, Andrea. Great job, Sarah. Alrighty. Okay. Bye, everyone else that is watching. Take care. Bye.
All right. Thank you so much for being with us even further on this live event. I thought it would be a great opportunity to share the Stigma-Free Society, Stigma-Free Mental Health Society's website, and to offer a little bit of information and knowledge about what we do. And so here I'm going to share my screen. And you can come to our website at stigmafreementalhealth.com. To learn more about us, simply come here. You can click on our charity where we share our values, our mission, who we are and what we do. As I mentioned, we are an organization that really focuses in on awareness, understanding, and acceptance. You can figure out here who our board is, our team, who is part of Stigma-Free, and also our 20 presenters. And today, Sarah and Sunny were just two of those presenters. And we offer classroom presentations across Canada. We hope to do even more in Surrey. I'd have to say the most active toolkit signups and presentations have been in the Surrey School District, as we have such a strong partnership, which we're very grateful for. And with these presentations, we come into your classroom virtually and anywhere across Canada and share about mental health, have one personal story presenter, and then also one person who shares a booklet on mental health literacy, learning about social emotional learning and such. And then just more information here. But the one thing I'd really like to pull attention to is the Stigma-Free School program. And here you will see we have 5 components to our Stigma-Free School program. We have the Student Mental Health Toolkit, our virtual stigma-free presentations, which I just mentioned. We also have for teachers, Stigma-Free Professional Development Day sessions, educators peer support fundamentals training, and we have stigma-free clubs. We're developing a welcome package, which is almost complete. And it's really exciting because students can form stigma-free clubs where they do activities in their school to create a stigma-free environment. But I'm going to take you into the Student Mental Health Toolkit link here and explain a little bit more, especially for educators, school counselors. Youth can also use the toolkit too. So the Student Mental Health Toolkit offers a variety of resources to help students improve their mental wellness and also their mental health knowledge. And so the toolkit has many, many resources. It is huge. It's a giant hub of lesson plans to downloadable resources. And even for parents, guardians, and caregivers, this is very useful. And it's at no cost. So due to our generous donors, we are able to offer our programming at no cost. So just to mention here again, resources included, these are just some of them. Mental wellness lesson plans, BC curriculum aligned. So you're not putting in that extra time to teach about mental wellness and mental health. This is especially helpful for PE classes and guidance classes as well. So we have grades 4 to 7 and 8 to 12. And here, downloadable resources. This is digestible information about one-pagers, about stigma, about mental health, about well-being. We also have a section devoted to diversity and inclusion, many engaging activities for students. And we have some quotes as well from educators such as Catherine in the Winnipeg School Division. And to access the toolkit, you would simply come here to request no cost access. And you would just simply have to enter your name, your last name, your email, where you are, your school or organization. And when you go to studentmentalhealthtoolkit.com, there'll be a sign up for full access link, and then you can log in. We do have a public link as well, where people can just view the Student Mental Health Toolkit, and it can be really an amazing thing to have in the classroom or at home. All right, so now I'm going to share as well, just lastly, a little bit about our virtual presentations. Okay, and so to find those, you come to Programs, Stigma-Free School Program, and Virtual Stigma-Free Presentations. And when you come down here, as I mentioned, they are presentations offered across Canada with a personal story presenter who speaks for about 12 minutes, a little bit shorter than today, and then a presenter sharing on mental health literacy, 45 minutes, and at no cost as well. There is also a great video here, a virtual stigma-free school presentation, step-by-step guide. It is 3.5 minutes only, and we really hope that educators will have a look at this, understand what the program entails, and to know that Stigma-Free is here to be of service to you. So thank you, everybody. And thank you, Dr. Daniel Toe from the Surrey School District, for entrusting us with your activities during May Mental Health Week. We are very, very grateful and honored. So everybody, really the Stigma-Free Mental Health Society has been built on personal stories. And it's very important that we live a life that is authentic. And I know some of us aren't always ready to share our stories, but do know that when we do share, we inspire other people, and it just creates a better world for everybody. So we can really make a difference if we are sharing our personal stories, and especially when we're demonstrating strength in doing that. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Surrey School District staff, especially to students, and much appreciation to all. So I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thank you so much for being here today, and let's live stigma-free. Thank you.